and I'll turn it over to our chair to begin the meeting.
Great. Thanks, Darlene. Glad you figured out a workaround. All right, I'm Elissa Richards and chairperson of the Utah Geological Survey Board. Welcome, everybody, and anybody who's joining us online. I'd like to call this meeting of the Utah Geological Survey Board to order. And it is now 8:34 on April 15, 2026. This meeting is being held in person and virtually with Google Meet. In compliance with Utah's open meeting laws, this meeting is being recorded in its entirety. This recording is classified as a public record, and the following board members are in attendance. Myself, Ken Fleck, Becky Hammond, Neil Burt, Riley Brinkerhoff, Michael Hansen, Rich Gordon, and Addie Bedingfield from Scylla is joining us online. And there are 0 board members absent. Following individuals representing the Utah Geological Survey and the Department of Natural Resources are in attendance. Darlene Batatian, Stephen Kirby is not here. Nguyen Seymour, looking forward to learning more about you. And Cheryl and Vendela. I think that covers it. Is that correct?
I think so. Thanks everybody for being here.
Yeah, at present, we welcome all visitors, and as a courtesy to everyone participating in this meeting, we ask that all cell phone pagers and other electronic devices be turned off. And board motions and votes will be reflected in the minutes and reported by individual board member, and let's proceed with the agenda.
Great, thank you very much. Go to the next slide here. Okay, so our agenda was published in the meeting packet. So we'll begin with the approval of minutes, followed by the approval of project proposals.
All right, let's start with the minutes. May I get a motion to approve the minutes from the January 21st, 2026 meeting?
So moved.
In a second. All those who approve of the minutes from the January 21st, 2026 meeting say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. The minutes from the January 21st UGS Board Meeting are, and then the contract proposals. We appreciate you getting those our way. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to have a motion to formally approve the contract proposal since our last meeting. I get a motion? Second.
And this, I believe this was updated, so.
All right. All of those who formally approved the contract proposals from between the last board meeting and today, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. All of the contract proposals since the last meeting of January 21st are formally approved.
Thank you. Director's report. I'll start by just asking if this process of sending these out by email for you guys to look over and send back an approval, is that working for you guys?
Yep.
It keeps us on schedule and allows us to move forward, so thank you. Okay, well, I'll begin the director's report by introducing our new finance manager. We're so excited to welcome Nguyen Seymour to the Utah Geological Survey. She was a clear choice in our interviews, super well prepared, great background. I'll let you tell the board a little more about your background. And she has landed on her feet. She started with us March 31st and has already dug into our budget and financials and has prepared a financial report for you today, which is really awesome. So, and then let's go around and maybe, I know a few of you had a chance to meet her, but maybe if we just go around and introduce each other after we have a chance to tell you a little bit about her background.
Absolutely. So before joining the survey, I spent the last 5 years working in M&A, so merger and acquisition integrations, with a fintech company and a tech company. I also spent time in the nonprofit sector and investment banking before that coming here. So you all probably been in a cave tour where they turn off the cave light, right? And then they say, imagine. And so in that moment, I imagined, what it would be like to be on the pictures of the elevator in the DNR. So that why I'm here. Awesome. So if you can make that happen for me. I really appreciate it. Yeah. I'm happy to be here. It was so much fun. Everybody has been so wonderful to work with. And I'm happy to show the analysis that we have been able to partner with this to put together.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Can I tell them about your side hustle? This is one of my favorite things about you. So Nguyen also does stand-up comedy. She does stand-up comedy at Wise Guys. I kind of,
I've been doing that since I would say before the pandemic a little bit.
Wow.
I'm not doing it for money or anything, just for fun.
You're gonna have to send that out to everybody. When do we know when she?
This is not sponsored by Wise Guys.
Well, maybe Darlene, could you just let us know?
I just think that she's just gonna begin getting to know all of our geologists and scientists, and I kind of think she's gonna get a lot of good material in the survey. Can we just go around and do introductions? And Michael, do you want to start?
I'm Michael Hansen. I work in engineering geology. I'm with an engineering company in Provo. That's a lot of stuff with geotech, dams, and bridges.
And Michael just joined our board within the last year, I think.
Yep.
So yeah, we're really glad to have him. He's a longtime industry professional that I have worked with and known about in extensively for a long time in my career.
Yeah, I'm Becky Hammond. I've been on the board for, I think, 5 years now. So it's my second term. And I come from actually the federal government for BLM and Forest Service mostly. Yeah, and I represent scientific interests on the board.
I'm Ken Fleck. I'm a coal geologist. I'm retired from the Utah coal industry. And I've been on the board for 11 years. And I hope you can go on a field trip. Make your
Yes.
elevator green.
A field trip inside the coal mine would remind me of NAM in 1996. I'm just kidding. My mom worked really hard to make sure that we have electricity right now in the day.
I'm Ryan McGrath. I do oil and gas. I'm out in the Uinta Basin. And, I actually came on the board same time. Been 5 years now, I guess. So gone fast.
I'm Elissa Richards, and I've been to board 9 years. And I represent the public at large. I'm not a professional geologist, but I'm the CEO of a national nonprofit and work with utilities across the United States.
Cheryl, or do I get?
Oh, she already knows me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So my name is Neil Burke. I'm a hydrogeologist. I work in the groundwater industry. I've been on the board for 2 years or so.
Richard Borden. I'm a ore body and environmental geologist specializing in metals mining. I've been on the board for only a year, and my areas of expertise are mostly in copper and precious metals.
Thank you all for your service.
Awesome. Well, welcome. And you'll hear more from Nguyen later in the presentation. We have a financial update for you. We love to celebrate our employees for their tenure, and Tyler Knudsen, who you may know, he works out of our Cedar City office, just reached his 20 years of service earlier this year. Tyler does a great deal of geologic mapping and geologic hazards work in southern Utah for us. He's great at external engagement as well. He's been a great mentor for mappers. He recently published, well, you'll see in our publications, a geologic map of Bryce Canyon and a Cedar Valley hazards map that showed extensive land subsidence that actually has already been used to provide some additional water resources for Enoch Valley. So for Enoch City. And then Claire Spangenberg is one of our groundwater and wetlands professionals, has reached 5 years as well. We do have a lot of new publications. It's been a minute since we've shared these with you. Phragmites in Utah. This is a public information piece. It's just a 4-page brochure. But again, just kind of talking about the Phragmites problem in Utah and how we do, how the state is managing that. Critical minerals PIs, so another 4-pager. That's just a summary of critical minerals information that we can now use instead of sending around a 67-page report to people who are interested in knowing more about critical minerals in Utah. Wetlands mapping and loss in Utah Valley. Pete Goodwin, Rebecca Molinari, who you may remember went on to contract. She's just working a few hours for us while she takes care of some new kids. And Elizabeth Stimmel, a frac sand potential on sitla lands. Riley, that's for you. Great Salt Lake lithium sourcing and groundwater flow investigations. This is becoming more and more, we're getting more and more questions about lithium around the Great Salt Lake. And then this groundwater flow investigation was also done in tandem with Aaron Brinkman from our groundwater group as well. And again, we're going to be, you've seen some news lately about groundwater beneath the Great Salt Lake. So we'll be getting towards the end of some investigations about that and should be able to provide some additional information. And then Tyler's Geologic Hazards of Bryce Canyon National Park, that has a really beautiful map as well. So if you're looking for a map of Bryce Canyon, this is a great publication to go to, and you can get the full-size map printed out at our bookstore if you want to hang it on your wall. Geochemical data. This is kind of a data dump on geochemistry, and then a second geochemical database for said strata for the Uinta Basin by kind of Ryan Gall and others at the survey. And then an update to the quaternary fault database. We continually update our database Q faults as we map more active faults around the state. So all of these have the DOI links, or you can just jump on our website and look for new publications to find those. Wanted to give you an update on legislative, what happened. I think the last time we met was in January, I believe. So we were just going into the legislative session. So I don't know if any of you had a chance to listen to the presentation that we gave to the legislature. Went really well. What we were not asking the legislature for any additional funds this year. We didn't have any building blocks to put forward. We felt like our financial position was really secure, so we didn't need to ask for any supplemental funding or anything. And given the legislature's really tight budget this year, it wasn't a great year to put any large proposals in front of them anyways. So what we focused on, I thought I had a slide on this. What we focused on was the return on investment that the Geological Survey provides. We focused on the work that we do all around the state. You know, our committee, the Natural Resources, Environment and Appropriations Committee, is made up of legislators that represent people from all over the state, both urban Utah as well as rural Utah. And so what we wanted them to know was that our work is done all over the state. So we had a map that showed where all of our research projects were, and let them know that, you know, we were working in their communities and to consider us a resource for them and for their communities. And that was actually really, there's a couple slides missing. I wonder if we have the most recent version of this presentation that resulted in us being written into 3 different bills during the session. So we presented on February 6th, and almost immediately we were written into a couple of bills that were presented during the legislative session. This kept Ben DeLynn really busy. Ben is one of our legislative liaisons and our public information officer. And so he was fielding these bills out to our groundwater and wetlands specialists and our critical minerals specialists, and to try to get information on, you know, could we actually execute the work that we were being charged to do in these bills? And was there a fiscal note that we needed to ask for in return? So, sorry, I'm back a slide here. So we also, if you recall, requested that we amend our statute because our statute, as we reviewed it over the past year doing strategic planning, our statute really didn't address the considerable amount of groundwater and wetlands work that we do. And so we wanted to write that into our statute. So these lines were added to powers of the survey. And then there was, at the same time, a request to amend our board makeup. Because if you remember, our board doesn't actually include a specific board seat allocated to the groundwater industry and groundwater resources. So we requested to replace, there are 4 mineral seats. So we requested to replace one of the mineral seats with a groundwater resources representative. One of the executive director of the Utah Mining Association did not want to lose a seat on our board. So we negotiated with them that instead of trading out a mineral seat and swapping that for groundwater, that we would instead add a new seat to this board. So instead of having 7 members, we will have 8 members. And one of the things I would like to do, so Neil, I think we've straightened out what this means about your seat. There's a board, how do I say this? Utah has a office of boards and commissions. And so Cheryl consulted with them about how to go through this change. And they're going to add a groundwater seat to our list of seats for our board. And you are welcome to apply for that seat. And then we'll have an open seat for a mineral industry representative. So in
Is it rich, the mineral?
what's that?
That's not rich.
For metals, but
There's 4 mineral seats. So Ken, you, Rich, and Neil is sitting right now in one of those mineral seats.
industrial minerals, right?
It's not specific in the statute. In fact, let's go to the statute. It's not specific in the statute. So we'll just create a new groundwater seat and Neil will apply for that seat. And when you are, when the governor approves that, which could happen very soon, Cheryl will probably send you an email about this. I think it'll happen within the next couple of weeks or month if they continue to the governor. So just watch for an email. That will leave that 4th mineral industry seat open. So I did want to talk with you guys about how to fill that seat and with what type of expertise. And if industrial minerals is a gap that we have, we can look at that. That would actually be great for the survey because we do a lot of work in industrial minerals. In fact, Greymont is helping us drill a deep well. They're looking for some pozzolan resources. And so they're going to drill a well and allow us to use that as a geothermal temperature gradient point. So we have great relationships with our industrial minerals companies here. I also thought that since the executive director of the Utah Mining Association was so interested in our board makeup, that we could also ask him if he'd like to help solicit a board member from their membership as well. We're actually meeting with him for lunch today to talk about Steph's BHP project. So, but I wanted to kind of take your guys' temperature and get your thoughts about that.
Who is the UMA director?
His name is Brian Summers. I don't know if any of your businesses are part of UMA or not.
I know.
So yeah. But this will be an open seat. So we'd love for your help to recruit a new board member.
And it would just be minerals. He's not being specified.
So this is how the new statute, actually, this is not correct. You know, Cheryl, we might have to pull up a different presentation.
Well, the one on the share drive, that's what's on there.
That's interesting. Does it have when slides in it?
Mhm.
Okay. That is strange.
So it would be 4 members.
Yeah, this is not updated. This is not correct. I had updated this slide. Wow, there's a lot missing here.
I wonder if you updated while she was in it, and hers overwrote, but you didn't, haven't saved it yet.
What's that?
There may have been an issue when you both might have had it open.
I don't think
When she
so.
did- I pulled it up from the share drive, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, the version that I completed editing yesterday afternoon had Lynn slides in it. So, this is actually 4. And as you'll notice, we also added geothermal. So this is another opportunity also, is that we could recruit someone from the geothermal industry. I do want to talk to Brian Summers about this also. But what are your thoughts about this?
I think if you looked at employment and revenue, oil and gas, metals, coal, industrial minerals is a missing board.
Yeah. I agree.
Who do you want? Who do you think makes the composition?
Well, I wanted to
Little
make a
balance.
comment back to Ken about the coal industry. I was just in Tucson last week for a meeting of the Intermountain West Coalition, which is a coalition of Western state geological surveys. And DOE has kind of renewed their focus on coal. They're going to be putting a lot of attention on not just coal mine exploration and mining, but also on the processing and kind of the logistics about getting coal to market. So I'm glad you're here, and you may see some additional funding coming into the coal industry. I think we have Riley's been an, great representative of the oil and gas industry, Richard on, precious metals. I think industrial minerals is a great objective for us.
That touches a lot of counties in the states and things too.
That's a great point, is that, it's everywhere, right? It's a necessary resource. And I think in terms of economics, especially on the aggregates, it is a big driver for Utah's economy. So, so if that's what you guys are thinking, I'll talk to Brian about that. And then if you have candidates that you think would be great for our board, please help us recruit a new board member for this seat. And then Neil will just put you through a couple exercises to move you over to groundwater. That will also be an open seat. So it's possible other people would apply. I don't know that we'll widely distribute that though. So.
Geothermal is important too. With all that's going on.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot more flux in geo jobs in geothermal right now. I mean, they're hiring all over the place. I see their stuff.
They are. There's a lot of companies coming into Utah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Verbo just got their water right application approved
Oh, they did?
for, massive amount of water. and
Oh,
that's in
interesting.
Oak Basin.
Oh, we'll have
It's
to
like
talk about
9,000
that
acre feet.
offline. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, both Fervo and Zanskar presented at the Intermountain West meeting. So, in terms of like longevity and stability for our board, and I can also talk to our program managers about this, but in terms of longevity and stability for our board, I'm thinking industrial minerals right now. So let's think about that.
Is there a demand from that industry for geologic products?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and in fact, if you go back to some of the publications, this frac sand potential on Sitla lands, and there was another, I think, pozzolans on
Yeah.
Sitla lands. Sitla is, and Andy's on the call, maybe he wants to speak more to this, but Sitla does promote their lands for mineral development. And because they're not federal lands, the permitting is quite a bit more straightforward. Andy, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, I mean, we depend heavily on the survey to do work like this on our lands, because we have a lot of land and we don't know everything that's on it. So we regularly hire the survey to do reports, resource reports. Maybe it's a specific area maybe it's more general, like the frac sand report, where they're looking at that. So it's been a great tool for us, and actually we probably have 30 to 50 reports that have happened over the last 20 years that are similar to this frac sand report. Yeah. And so I guess the other part is that you mentioned there's no NEPA on trust land. So a lot of companies, like that Graymont Pozzolan, for an example, that's going to be on trust lands because they can get stuff done on trust lands as opposed to federal lands.
Thank you. Any comments or feedback on Becky's comment about geothermal representation?
I think it's definitely something worth considering, I guess, seeing
Okay,
how the
okay,
market evolves.
yeah. Okay. Well, let me have lunch with Brian Summers today. I'll mention this. And see what, if he has thoughts. And then our energy and minerals program manager is out of the country right now. So when Mike comes back, and so do you guys want me to circle back with you? For comments, any thoughts or anything?
Love to see some email.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and the geothermal is often coupled with the groundwater.
I'm curious how a lot of the,
Go ahead.
all the industrial minerals stuff. I was under the impression a lot of it, like, they get the permitting, it's under civil engineering work. That will get the initial and maybe the final permits in. I don't have a sense, how many geologists do we have that work not critical minerals, I'm sorry.
Industrial minerals?
Industrial minerals.
That is a good question. And maybe that's, Cheryl, will you make a note about that question in your minutes about how many geologists work in the industrial minerals field? I'm sure Andrew Repke will have some information on that. So I know that there were, our energy lead, Mike Vandenberg, and Andrew Repke write up a minerals in Utah report every year. It's usually a year delayed. There's a lag time because they have to wait kind of for the end of the year. It takes some time to write it up. So the most recent one was published for the 2024 year. Those reports have production values and tonnages, I think, listed in the report. So we can look at the, kind of the economic driver aspect of industrial minerals. But I know that this is the focus of Andrew Repke. So we have a manager of industrial minerals, and Taylor Bowden works under Andrew. So I'll talk to our minerals team about this. That's the same, the energy and minerals team is geothermal, oil and gas, coal, and precious metals and industrial metals. So yeah, this was an unexpected kind of last minute, day before the vote sort of shift. So I was just glad that we could negotiate something that works for our board.
It's likely they'd be kind of a surface geology expert as well, where a lot of us do a lot of subsurface work with their industry. Kind of geomorphologists.
Yeah, geomorphology, quaternary geology, I bring that aspect.
Okay.
We do a lot of studies for people who are being some rock that's going to develop. And they're not just looking for sand and gravel, limestone.
Yeah,
or
aggregates,
crush.
right, for road base.
They want to know what's there, if they want to even apply for a permit purchase the land.
Okay, all right, that's good to know. So we have some connections to the industrial minerals, and we have some connections to the geothermal, with water resources. Okay,
One thing I also thought that was missing from Dogum is they do not regulate sand and gravel operations.
They're done in the county line?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so they don't permit sand and gravel. They don't require reclamation, bonding, which kind of always bugged me being on the board. Todd, when you look at the scale of some of those big sand and gravel.
I couldn't agree more. It's the wild, wild west sometimes with gravel.
Well, and they often have a lot of accidents. I do IMSA training every year, and sailing gravel operators and a lot of incidents.
Not that we're a regulator, but it's just something that's sort of missing. I don't know who's.
Well, how does that affect our board? So let's kind of follow that trail line of thinking for a minute. Is that, would it be helpful for them to have insight? Would it be helpful for that industry to have insights into what the Geological Survey is doing and vice versa? Because this is also a part of helping industry see, how we support that industry, or finding out what their needs are, so we can make sure that we're, providing that.
I think ideally, you find someone who has a big network in the industry. Just outside of it.
We're going to take our time on this, so no decisions need to be made right now. We have our next meeting is in August, so maybe we'll just let the boards and commissions thing get stood up and be thoughtful about this. So I'll talk to our E&M lead and maybe circulate some thoughts back for you guys. And I'll talk to Brian Summers at Utah Mining also.
Yeah, I would think you could get somebody from like Staker Parsons or something like that. They have like a bunch of pits.
Right.
One of the bigger players, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, what gives me pause is, I keep pretty close tabs on a couple of the geology programs, BYU, University of Utah, and a little bit Utah State. I don't know any grads that went to industry minerals, and geology grads. There could have been some. I just don't know any. I don't know if you guys have heard. Just don't know what that community looks like, or if there is much.
Okay, so a key question to answer is, how many geologists work in the industrial minerals field?
Where they come from, how they get there, and then what they need.
Yeah, right.
You might find the only geologists you can find are looking for really good limestone deposits or something.
Yeah.
Well, I know I used to get calls about, can you help us find new gravel pits, right? I mean, Sunrock, Granite, they're all looking for new resources all over the place, and the closer to the development sites, the better. So they're out there, and it is also possible that once you get that job, that's just a job you stay in for a long time. So like many of our industries, maybe that turnover just hasn't happened yet. They're all going to age out of being, gravel geologists at the same time or something. And then there won't be any new ones. So don't forget to train people to do industrial minerals.
That'd be a good question for Mike.
It is a good question. Yeah. Yeah. And Andrew. So,
Well,
okay.
there's also minerals like gypsum, which is industrial, but it's also locatable. But it's not a metal. There's geologists that go into that sort of mining there.
Well, and so I'm thinking, so my brother-in-law works for the Leamington Concrete Plant as a geologist, but he's all permitting. The people that actually do the mine control for the limestone were geologists, that they're all civil engineers.
True.
That's interesting. Cheryl, will you make another note, and that is to circulate the 2024 mining report to the board? Let's send you guys that report. Take a look at that report, because it does go through both, metallic and industrial minerals and the values and, like industry leaders in production and that kind of stuff. Mike Vandenberg keeps pretty close tabs on mining in general, and I think Andrew Rupke keeps pretty close tabs on the aggregates and other industry. We had a whole workshop. Andrew stood up a whole workshop last year where he brought all of the industrial minerals geologists in, and people flew in from across the country for this conference. So there were probably 40 people in the room, which is more than you would think for something like that. It was very popular. There was good science that was presented. We can actually get a list of the names. Maybe this is another follow-up, Cheryl, is a list of the names from Andrew's Industrial Minerals Conference.
At your website, you are representing industrial minerals right now.
Okay.
Well, man,
Best of interest here, so.
that precedent might be the tipping point for this conversation. Okay, I'm sorry.
We have a hand raised online?
I went to that conference that Andrew put on. There was a lot of people. There was Wholesome people. There were some Ash Grove people, Graymont Western people. So I think that's a great idea.
Thank you. Great input, you guys. I think we just got some important data points right at the tail end of this conversation. All right, shall we move on then? Okay. See, so that is the changes to our board. And then with that, we can turn it over to Nguyen. Do you want to come sit here or do you prefer to stand? Okay.
Or you have some accounting jokes.
I need to do that next time and I will.
Okay.
I'll take that as a challenge. Okay, so I put together with the collaboration from staff, together a financial performance update for the survey year to date. So the data is up to date as of April 10th, which is last Friday. So
Let's use the arrows.
So on the right-hand side, you see that's just total appropriation that we have year-to-date available funding and all that data key points. I'm gonna go through in a minute to have a sense of where we are. So I'm not gonna go over this, but this is just kind of want to give you an idea of what we're gonna be discussing today. So we're gonna go over the overview, go over the appropriation year-to-date that we have. Where are we in terms of collection for funding outside and expenditures, and how is the outlook for the end of the year? So I'm going to start off with the funding architectures for the survey. So as you can see, the funding source that we get are the general fund, which is make up of the beginning, none left at the beginning of the year, the general fund and the general fund one time that were given. All of that together for the survey for the fiscal year 2026, which start from July 1st until June 30th of this year is 8.9 million. And so that number alone, as you can see, is not going to be sufficient for the survey to operate and deliver missions critical plan. And so we have supplement of restricted account, which is coming from our restricted account 1137, we'll go over them in detail, and then the land exchange distribution account, which is 1335. Those restricted account the risk associated with them is we need to monitor them so that we don't overdraw because revenue coming in and we have to make sure that it's balanced. The outside funding that's supplementing the operating budgets coming from the federal grant component, the dedicated credit, expandable receipt, as well as the transfer. So the maximum authority set by the appropriation allow us to maximum captures of revenue, but our earning or our collections is determined by the actual project that we deliver from the survey. And so all of that component making up the operating budget for the survey, which is a fixed funding from the general fund and the restricted account of 12.23 million and outside funding, which is 6.27 million. We'll go over both of those components in detail in a minute. On the expenditure side of things, the personnel service accounted for majority of the expenditures, 76% of the total spend, and year to date, we have spent 8.2 million. So if you look at that and look at the general fund, obviously we need to make sure that our effort in outside funding collections is up to date, as well as a restricted account, a close monitor. And then the outside funding life cycle, as you can see, it started with the program manager and the staff putting together the grant proposal. They plan for their resource with their team, and then they work through the scheduling. And then based on whether it deliver on time or late delivery, then we'll have no cost extensions or the fund itself get elapsed. Then it get to billing, and then we'll make sure that it's actually get collected so that we have available funding to spend. And so with the outside funding, the key risk that the survey would face is obviously late delivery for a project so that the fund would elapse, or we have resource capacity, bandwidth issues that then make us not able to deliver, and then we have a no cost, we should bring it to the next year's budget, and then any delayed billing that would then reduce our year-end budget. So that is kind of overview of the funding architecture. You probably all know, but as the newbie, I just want to give myself a refreshers. So coming in, the visions that the finance team want to take upon is, number one, take care of our people. We want to make sure that we have a long-term funded workforce plan and not just relying on one component of the grant. And that means that we have a clear funding source understanding for FTE at the time of hiring, and whether they are tied to a state funding or a outside funding source. We want to monitor all the funding component closely. So that's coming from the restricted account as well as the outside funding, billing, and collections to make sure that it's up to date. And the last component is the forecast. We want to make sure that we partner with team and stakeholders so that we have the most accurate forecast for the survey so the operation can be smoothed out, and that we remove all the admin burden that staff has had to endure so that they can focus on missions critical work. And so with that, the key financials activity, and you will see in the way that the thought process in the next few slides show that we want to make sure that the funding source mapping is clear. We want to make sure that we're balancing between our collections, taking in our status of our restricted account, and then if any issue, want to flag that early, and then again, forecasting, right?
Can I ask about collections? Is the collection, is there much friction on collections? Do we have a hard time with that? Because it seems like mostly governmental agencies.
We'll go over that in a minute.
Okay.
We have the answer for you on that. And Ben can give more color on that too. But stay tuned. So here's year to date. Revised appropriations went up by 1.04 million compared to the beginning of the year. Majority of that is in outside funding appropriation. We'll go over that in detail. Year-to-date expenditures is 10.7 million right now, as of, again, April 10, 2026. That represents 72% of our available funding. I'm going to pause that and just want to give kudos to everybody on the survey, because at 75% of the year has gone past, they only at 72%. So that's great work for everybody had involved. The second thing that I want to highlight is year to date, the survey has built outside funding 3.54 million. That is incredible because that represents 79% of total from 2025 alone. And that only accounted from July till February, which is only at 67% of the year. So they have done a great job billing out. Nonetheless, that we have authority to carry forward to next year's was increased to 3.65 million, which is kudos to Russ, who was not here today, as well as Ben and Roger and everybody else who have put together that and get that approved. We already talked about the funding utilizations that is at 71%. I think it's 71%. So sorry about the mismatch between 71 and 72% of that. And then just a note that those 3.65 million, we have intent language so that at the bottom, and you can see how it can be distributed across different project and expenditure category. And that 3.65, just want to call out, that does not represent the actual year to date. The forecast will show you in a little bit. That's just a maximum intent that we that we have.
Can I just add something to this slide? At this time last year in April, we had identified that we were not on track. Actually, we identified this in January, thanks to some work that Ben did, that we were way behind on our revenue collections, like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, meaning that people weren't focused on executing their grant commitments. They were just working on whatever and not putting grant codes on their timesheets, whether they were working on them or not. So we weren't able to collect that revenue. And it was one of the reasons why we were running such a significant deficit last year. So starting in February, early February, and remember this, some of this was triggered by digging into our financials because of the federal freeze, right? So we were like, well, how far along are we on some of these grants? How much do we have at risk? And Ben identified that people actually, there were a lot of people not charging to those grants. And so we had a conversation with staff about setting aside other projects, focusing on their grant work, making sure those codes were on their timesheet. This is such a simple thing. If you've been in consulting, you know, you live and die by this, right? And also for those supervisors that are signing those timesheets to make sure that their staff are actually putting those codes on there. That's their job. And so I think part of this was having some newer supervisors, not really training. I think just a loss of focus in general at the survey, but it was really one conversation. And Ben also was able to go back and back charge some of our grants and recover some of those charges. So by April, we were moving, you know, in the right direction. By the time we closed out in July, or, you know, June 30th, we had basically overcome that revenue loss. So this is a big pivot, and knowing that we're, you know, 3/4 of the way through the year, we're at 70+% of our revenue capture, we're right on track, and that is where we want to be. And so, yeah, our staff did a great job. Ben did a great job identifying this. Nguyen's doing a great job actually tracking this. But this was a big turnaround for the survey, and I think has put us on track for success, you know, now and going forward. So. Thank you for that. And then if I can just say one more thing about this carry forward, our carry forward in the past was about 2.1 million. But because we have a multi-million-dollar building block, that's about a 3-year building block, right? That 1.75 million. So we need to be able to take that, you know, large amount of funds into subsequent years with us, or we have a lapsing ceiling. It was 2.1 million. And so if we had, you know, 3.2 million, because we're carrying over additional building block funds, those funds would be swept and we would lose them. So what Russ and Ben and our finance director at DNR, Roger Lewis, did was ask our legislative fiscal analysts to raise that appropriation ceiling so we can take more funds with us into subsequent years. So we have a Ruby lapsing ceiling now of 3.65 million. That just kind of provides us some additional background on how important those numbers are for us, and the forethought that it requires to kind of think through that and look ahead so that we protect those funds.
Any other questions before I move on to next? Okay, so here's our appropriations that after revisions, so we have the fixed funding went down by 91.7K, represent about 0.7%. As you can see, general fund one time was cut down by 115,700, and then restricted account we have more authority to draw from those. On the outside funding, the appropriation for federal fund one-time dedicated credit as well expendable receipt and transfer all went up, and that work is critical because you'll see in a minute in our forecast that we needed that room so that we can collect more for this year's. Okay, so here's the fixed fund, restricted fund 11137 that we talk about. So the makeup of these require 4 different revenue lines, as you can see here, and we'll go over their performance in detail in the next slide, but I just want to call out that of those makeup of those 4 revenue line, for first of all, the my occupation tax, the mineral, we get a deposit of revenue on a quarterly basis, and the year-to-date revenue from that was 213K, and in average, each quarter about 71K. For the next one, oil and gas, also on a quarterly basis, we get a deposit into the restricted account, and year-to-date, we have collected 958K, and then in average each quarter, the check is about 319K. So for both of those, we have one more quarter that we will be able to collect from those 2 accounts. And then for that last section, that's the projections of how much we think that we'll be able to bring in for last quarter, basically just using the average of the last 3 quarters. And then we also get interest income, and then the mineral lease that we have a 2.25%. So that deposit on a monthly basis. And so far we have received all 9 months, and we have 3 months left. The projections showing the 752 showing the Q4 remaining revenue. And so with that projections, we believe that at the end of the year, July, at the end of June 30th, the balance will be 633,273 for that particular.
Can I just ask for clarification on that? So that's with those Q4 withdrawals into our
Correct.
operating
Yep.
budget, we'll still have 633,000 left in our restricted account.
Correct.
We have a carryover in our restricted account. That's like having money in our savings account. So that's.
Yeah, and this the significance of this number. So after projecting that we're gonna take out our appropriation amount, which is 811,750 for Q4, we projected to have this at the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. And then the next time we'll have to draw out will be October of 2026. And so with that, we see 600K and then another 600K, making about 1.2 million. So the next one that we draw, which will be in October, will have sufficient to draw. So that's why we want to keep closely track of that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So is the tax rate on oil and gas significantly more than minerals?
I'll show you that in a
yes.
minute.
So I'm holding against risk, but it's not apples and oranges what they tax.
Yeah, so to answer your questions, oil and gas making up 45% of this particular account, and then the mineral 10%. So yes, oil and gas taxes a lot more than that.
That's helpful to see that, you know, on a monthly and quarterly basis, to see it mapped out like that. That's income into the account, right?
Yeah, so this is all incoming to the account. As I mentioned earlier, these are the restricted account that have 4 components making up. So these first 2, as you can see, they deposit on a quarterly basis, but the federal mineral lease and the interest income that come in on a monthly basis. And then as you can see, there's a big dip in October, where it was a lot less.
Yeah,
And
we're
so
still not sure
that
why.
skewed the data.
You know, so we're not really sure why
And it shouldn't have
that
been.
payment was under $7,000. Sometimes it's just really low and then they make it up. You can see the spike
So
in
it's
the
just lumpy,
next
not
payment.
because production was going up the whole time.
Yeah. We couldn't figure that one out, but they made up for it in the next payment. If you see the payment after that spiked up to 227,000.
Does that cost you having it be lumpy like that, or? that
No,
wouldn't matter?
because we would.
'Cause it averages out.
Because appropriation, we can draw up to the appropriation authority, but we still want to make sure that the balance there from the next time. We
Yeah,
don't want to get run to a deficit.
and
But-
that gets pushed into, funds into our operating budget get pushed in quarterly, not monthly. So the money goes into the restricted account quarterly or monthly, depending on which fund it's coming from. But then into our operating budget, it only happens once a
So if
quarter.
there's a reporting lag before your.
It just
it
washes
could-
out.
It could, yeah.
Yeah.
Make
we're
it-
finding
make it
some
lumpy on you.
subjects that
What we are
finding
watching
time.
though is we're watching our lapsing ceiling. And so if we're close to that lapsing ceiling, like subtracting all of the stuff we have to carry over, like building blocks and transfer funds and dedicated credits and all that, if we're close to that lapsing ceiling, we can actually request to hold back funds for that last quarterly payment. And so we're watching this really carefully because instead of, do you want to go back a slide? Instead of taking that
811.
752,000 or is it 811,000? Instead of taking that whole amount out, we can just request like 400,000 from it. And then we just save that extra, $300,000 or $400,000 in that restricted account. Doesn't go anywhere. That's our bank account. We can keep it there. So, and given some anticipated projects that are going to fund in July, like Explore, we may want to just hold back on some funds. So that's where we'll kind of do some work to talk about optimizing our restricted account to really allow us to build up a reserve in that restricted account.
Absolutely. So here's the outside funding year by year trend. As you can see, every year the survey managed to collect more than the prior year. As of last year's, the total was 4.45 million. Year to date in 2026, we have collected 2.93 million, and that on the right side, as you can see, are where the outside funding coming from. So Energy Mineral at 1.2 million from outside funding represent 43% of that 2.93 million. And then the groundwater, the next, which is to represent 22%. I do want to call out that this just represent the opportunity where the outside funding for this group. I do not want to say that some is a leader in any category. So
Who says transfers? What do transfers mean in this case?
It's revenue from another state agency.
Okay.
So either
So
within
similar
DNR.
transferring it.
Exactly.
We have really built up a lot of work with our sister agencies. So you can see the increase in that gray. Well, actually, it's not that big of an increase, but it's SITLA, Forestry, Fire, and State Lands, which manages sovereign lands, particularly the Great Salt Lake, and the Great Salt Lake Commission's office. They have tech team grants that we are, repeatedly awarded to do work on everything from Phragmites to wetlands work. So Forestry, Fire, and State Lands, Division of Water Rights requests that we do groundwater basin studies and groundwater basin budgets. So they pay us for those studies. So we're really doing a lot of work, in partnership with our sister agencies. And that's a great way for the survey to really help the state make great decisions about work is when our sister agencies request work from us. So it's not all pursuing federal grants to do whatever. A lot of it is internal work that we do on behalf of the state of Utah.
Did you say that work's increasing or kind of stable?
Definitely.
Seems like it's
increasing.
increasing on the
It's increasing.
proposals that we've
Yeah,
ever
yeah,
seen.
right? If you
Yeah.
watch who we're doing proposals for. Yeah. And, remember that the Great Salt Lake Commission was given $50 million to do studies on how to, address, declines and habitat management of the Great Salt Lake. And we've benefited from that large award.
But you've been growing rapidly. Is that, if you project out 3 or 4 years, you're going to target that level of growth, or?
I think that some of this growth is inflated by a couple of programs where we have large contracts with a service provider, and we have $1 million plus of services being paid to that contractor. So it inflates the revenue a bit because we'll get reimbursed for it. We are seeing a pretty strong year-over-year increasing trend, but I don't think we're going to necessarily see it continue forever as we have some of these contracts kind of fall off and end. I think it'll stabilize. That said, I do think the next couple of years will be record revenue years for UGS.
So let's really pass through money.
A large portion of it is. This
Do you
year, I
wanna
think
give
we,
an example.
yeah, so we have a program this year funded by the Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Lands, where we're flying planes over the Great Salt Lake and using LiDAR to map the lake bed. For that contract, I believe 1.4 million of the 1.8 million of the project is passed through to the aerospace contractor flying over the lake. So 1.4 million of revenue split between this year and last year is really just passed through to that aerospace group.
And then, some of it's also affected by match that we put in for, like, state map has a 50% match, right? Other programs, Earth MRI has about a 20%, right? So these are the federal and, state collections for those programs, but we have some skin in the game on some of those also. So that's not total funding spent on grants because some of it comes from us.
Yeah, and I think to answer Riley's question earlier about the friction between bill and collected, as you can see, year to date, we bill 3.54 million. We collect of that 3.54 million, we collect 2.93. So that we are on the finance team, we're all making sure that gets collected so that we have a thing.
To dive deeper, there's really not too much friction with collections. The universities are often slow to pay us. Some of our sister agencies are a little bit slow to pay us, but they do pay. It's just whether it's in monthly request or 3 months later.
I mean, living in the consulting world. It's not uncollectible in a big.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Is there any gaming by some of these other groups across their fiscal year?
No.
Okay.
I think it's organizational
Inertia.
Polite way to put it.
Yes,
It's
more
fine.
diplomatic.
Maybe if we were in more financially dire straits, maybe it would be a concern, but we're not. So, we're fine. We don't need to bark up anybody's tree. We'll get paid. So once we got through the whole federal hiccups, from January through March of last year, that was, I think, the only time I felt like we were at risk of not getting paid. So we're all back on track now. So
2728 might be weird congressional years.
I was gonna say, do you foresee or project any more challenges? within
I have a
the area?
slide on that. If we have the right slide deck, if we don't have the right slide deck, I may just get out and pull out my slide deck, because I do have some slides on.
All right, so here's our forecast for Q4 in terms of collections. The method that we use is we take the average, which is the base of the last 3 quarters, and then we use that for the base case scenario. And then for the low, we just take 1 standard deviation down. That will be our worst case scenario. And then the high will take 1 standard deviation up. And so what we projected for Q4 would be 1.6 million in terms of collections, and that brings us to 4.52 for the full years. We believe that is mostly going to be on the high and high plus, because typically Q4 is when we bill the most, and we have an extra fiscal month or fiscal period that we get to bill. So we believe that will be.
Yeah, we're a 13-month fiscal
that's
accounting
right.
calendar.
Okay.
So yeah, so we think it's gonna be even higher than 4.52. I think Ben said it may be 5 million, shy of 5 million this year that we're going to collect. So good thing for the survey. Here's our expenditures. We're touching on 10.7 million year to date that's spent, and personnel, as you can see, is the highest cost driver for the survey. And then you see that the same for forecast, we put the low would be the average of the last 9 months. For the base case scenario, we'll take average of the last quarter, so January, February, March. And then for the high case, we'll take the average of last 3 months and 1 highest month. And so with that, in the expenditures for Q4, we'll see that ranging from 3.4 to 4.6 million, and that will put the survey between end of year for the full years 3.9 to 15 million on the high case. So with that, we take the base kind of the average of those all 3 to give us a forecast of where we're going to end for this year's. Any question before I move on to the next one? Okay. So here's our workforce update. The current headcount that we have is 87. 90 is budgeted, potentially could be 91. And then compared to this same time last year's of 95. That's a change of 5 headcount. Personnel, we already mentioned that it represents 76% of the survey. So that is a very stable base that we can use to forecast. Not only for this year, but upcoming years. And then as you can see right now, there are 3 positions that we actively recruiting.
I'm gonna predict that mapping position gets a record number of applicants.
I think we're gonna get some real, could you go back to that
That
slide for
might
a
be the
second?
sexiest job in America for geologists.
It's gonna be pretty awesome. So keep in mind that we're hiring. And so if you know, people who are qualified, please direct them to the state's careers page where they can find information about these opportunities. These are great opportunities. The first 2 are at the project geologist. So that's a mid-level of expertise. And then the wetlands ecologist is kind of a lower to mid-level hire as well.
Critical minerals one's been open for 3 weeks now, right? So you got good applicants on it?
2 weeks, I
2
think.
weeks.
Yeah.
How many applicants you like?
I'm not sure.
Mike is the only one who has visibility into that.
Oh, okay.
He's gallivanting
Yes,
internationally,
definitely.
right?
Emma, did you have a comment?
I was just gonna say, when we hired for Madeline's position, we had 186 applicants for that job.
Well, Eugene's position, we had like 120. So, we could pick the best PhD because he has so many options.
This is a great survey to come and work for. So I expect we'll have really awesome candidates. I'm excited. I'm excited for this. I'm also just excited and really happy that we had, we lost, I think, 9 people last year. 2 people were riffed and we had a bunch of people go to grad school. We really needed to get our head count down and stabilize our finances. And I'm really thoughtful and careful about hiring. Being able to sit in on these proposal kickoffs has really showed us where we have kind of longevity in funding and bandwidth issues with our people that are managing those programs, and they need help, right? So these are very selective hires. We've been really thoughtful about this, but it's great to be able to expand our team. These are also, except for the mapper, I think these are term limited hires. So, 1 to 2 years, assess our funding, assess their success working with us, and decide whether we want to retain them or not. But it feels great to be able to take those personnel savings and then go out and recruit 3 new scientists. But we have been really thoughtful. We don't want to get ourselves back into the situation where we're ballooning up our head count to try to address like short-term funding stuff. We're going to continue to be really thoughtful about proposals.
Has the groundwater one been open very long?
Just about the same time as critical minerals, maybe a week shorter.
A lot of interest in that.
I'm not sure. I've been away, so I haven't checked in on how many applicants there are for these. So.
Well, if I was younger, I would apply for that. job.
I would apply for that mapping job.
It's more fun.
It's way more fun.
I'm surprised Stefan doesn't resign and play.
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't say that out loud.
Okay. Okay, so just want to recap. Here's our projected end of the year balance. So we projected with our collections 4.5 million and our fixed funding 12.2. We'll have 16.76 million in our available funding, which potentially could be higher because outside collected could be up to 5 million, right? So that could bring it up. And then projected in terms of the expenditures, we'll look at 14.3. And so that will bring us to 2.4 million unexpended balance at the end of the year. Recap on the restricted fund 1137 that we talked about, we projected that if we draw at the full amount, then we'll have 633K left in that restricted account. The more that we have in that account balance, the better. And then year to date, again, as of April 10, we have available funding of 15.1 million. 10.7 is our year-to-date expenditures. And as of April 10, we have 4.3 million in unexpended balance. And then right now we have 692K in our restricted account. So all in all, we are doing great in terms of overall. And there's some programs that underspending, overspending, so we are smoothing that out for the remaining of the year. And then to end, I just want to showcase some of the key risks and opportunities that we potentially see, obviously with the workforce capacity, you know, put that as a risk, but most likely we will not be able to hire that very soon because we have a lot of applicants. I want to point out the bookstore revenue had a strong total sale year to date. Year to date, they had grow 14% compared to last year in total sales. And then in terms of their web traffic, they see a 39% increase as well. And then one thing that I want to call out is that their mobile conversions also up. So right now it's at 2.82%. So they are a younger demographic engagement that interested in what the bookstore has to sell. We already touched on the strong fiscal positions that we're gonna end up for fiscal year 2026. And then outside momentum is a strength, but as Darlene want to point out, that's also one is a risk that we want to monitor, because as we scale up in outside funding source, we want to make sure that we have a long-term plan for all of our staff so that we don't get caught up in just the project itself, right? So that they stay fully funded.
Darlene, how did you grow your bookstore?
What's that?
How'd you grow your bookstore?
We have a new manager and she's just on fire. She's really, she's just got great ideas about, you know, bringing in everything from new products to where she advertises. She's done radio spots. We gave her a green light to open a social media account for the bookstore. We continue to sell parks passes and state passes, and we collect revenue on those passes as well. But I really have to give a lot of credit to Michelle Ricketts. She's our bookstore manager, and she's done a great job. So, and then we have, if you remember, we riffed the geologist position that was in the bookstore and hired a new bookstore clerk, Kitri Spencer. And Kitri is really the one who kind of drove the social media engagement and asked for a social media account. So between the two of them, Michelle has, I don't know if you've been in our bookstore recently. I really encourage you to go in. She's really cleaned it up. It's a very inviting space. She's put a little reading lounge in there now. She's just been a great asset for us. And so that is really Michelle and Kitri's work reflected right there.
Maybe we need to do a little tour, a quick tour sometime after a meeting.
You know, that would be a great idea, actually. And the other cool thing we did when you walk over there is the Diablo Ceratops skull that used to be here. We built an exhibit for it and moved it to the DNR lobby.
Yeah.
So it just looks really great over there. So, yeah.
I'll just say, I believe board members get a 20% discount in the bookstore.
Wow.
So
I have bought a lot of books. You know what they've never mentioned?
I'm sorry.
That's right. They're like, you know, oil and gas.
Oil and gas, that guy.
No, no, it's I'm sure they don't.
Mention that, but go ahead and shop there. I mean, she's really brought in a lot of new titles. There's like staff picks over there. You guys could ask her for a card and put like a UGS board member pick for a book that you like.
How about the geology of Utah parks? That is a fabulous.
That's a
book. It
really
came out last
beautiful
year.
publication. That's
And it's-
UGA's new publication.
That
It's
is-
hardbound. It has full page reproductions of maps. It's a really beautiful publication. So it's also $52. So 20% off of that book is a chunk of change. Right? You can spend it on buying some other books.
I can confirm I got the discount after last time.
Ah, good. Say something.
You know,
Michelle and Kitri.
you know, a little bit more sexy.
Yeah.
Hi, you guys.
I think I've only gotten a 10% discount, so I'm.
If you're federal, like, the feds, we don't get that.
Maybe I have the number wrong then.
Okay.
Maybe my mistake.
It might be 10%.
Whatever Michelle wants to give you.
Yeah.
It's kind of loose over there with discounts, from what I can tell. Emma, did you?
I
have
was gonna
something?
say, we do have cards for the bookstore and they have little QR codes. So you'll get a 10% discount at least if you take one of those
Do
cards.
you have them here?
Yeah, they're just out here on. the-
Yeah, will you grab a stack? We're gonna take a break in a little bit, so we can pass them out at a break.
You know, and every time we do like a course shop or something like that, and we always tell everybody, and it's good to hand out the cards, people go and they spend. Like,
It's a
people
great
love the
bookstore. It's hard
It's
not
a
to
great
walk in
bookstore.
there
And
and
walk out
find
and not buy
something. And then Michelle and Kitchery have also
Thank you.
been going out to conferences and stuff like that. Like I think Kitchery will be at Geology Rocks this weekend in Green River.
That was
The table
last
is
weekend, I
last
believe.
weekend?
Yeah, Green River Rocks.
Yeah,
And it sounds like it was a very successful event for them.
yeah. So they're out and about more with the Utah Geological Survey table and, you know, just doing great PR. for us.
Yeah, and if you look up our Google review, 4.9.
Nice.
So, yeah, that's a
That
record,
is good.
a lot higher than the liquor store. Yeah.
But she has an online.
Did you
store
really
now, too.
compare those?
She has an online store now, too.
Yes, there's been an online store for the last few years, but we have a shocking number of in-person sales. They say brick and mortar retail is dead. I think the bookstore is a pretty good counterpoint to that.
And the Google review
Fun
would
stuff. I like it.
tell you otherwise.
It's a great bookstore to browse in. So,
We really should just take a trip over there one time, and so we could meet Michelle.
That's a
and
great
Gentry.
idea. Yeah, so Cheryl, if you're taking notes, a bookstore tour for next time.
Is the bookstore a profit center now?
It's close.
Getting close.
So it's probably close. I think last year we were running about an $80,000 deficit, and I'm guessing this year we're closer to 10,
I think 20.
20.
20,000 probably.
So,
Historically, it's
that's
run
better.
between 80 and $120,000 deficit.
4 years ago, we were 100, we were over 100.
Yeah, I,
And there was serious discussions like, can we do this
Close
long
it.
term? Yeah. So,
And we
good
were-
job.
We were getting questions from DNR leadership about whether we wanted to consider closing the bookstore. So we just needed to make some really necessary changes. So, and then just got really lucky with Michelle. She's been a great driver. And actually, we ran out of calendars this year. We scaled back on our calendar printing because we had a lot less stuff left over. And this year we like totally ran out. So we'll kind of split the difference next year, because Michelle's like, we could have sold another 300
Yeah.
calendars. So,
There's people in my office who are jealous because I
because you have one. I wish we had more to give you.
Yeah.
So that was on me, because I was like, let's just make 1,000 less. And then maybe that was too much of a step back. And we even raised the price $1. So I think we're gonna raise the price again and print another 500. We'll see.
It was only $10, I mean, it was,
I like $9.95.
yeah, it was very, it's cheap.
That's cheap.
oh, yeah.
Now
And
we
if
go
you
on
buy
market.
them in
Yeah.
bulk, we give a discount on that. So there are companies that buy them in bulk to give to employees. And we give a bunch away, like we mail a bunch out.
I think 3 years ago, you invited the board members to submit pictures, and I just want to beat Becky. That's my goal. Did you submit any photos when they did it 3 years ago?
No, I haven't yet, but I'm going to this year.
Well,
So be sure
they
to let us
didn't
know.
invite us last year to submit, so.
It is a high bar. I just want you to know. It's a pretty high bar.
I know.
So do your best. But promises and no special favors because you're.
I know, but
Well,
I,
some from the board members got one in, so.
Stephen Kirby's like, I haven't had a picture in that calendar for ages. Haven't
I
you?
was gonna say, there are a couple back here that we give away for like some of the students and stuff. I want one, there's a couple.
Those
that-
might disappear.
I thought those were older ones, like,
There's a couple of the older last years, but there's a couple of the
25.
oh, the.
first serve.
Okay, back to Win.
And
Oh, sorry.
That's all I have to present. So just want to sum it up. Year to date, 71% actually at 75% elapsed. So we're on track. And then we are projected to end the year at 2.4 million in terms of end of the year balance. And then our outside funding is on target. So we are doing great.
Are any of your outside funding projects multi-year?
Yes.
Do you ever have a projection where you
Yes.
can project like 2 years out, 1 year out?
We're very much starting to try and put that long sightedness into financial planning. Russ and I did this last year for the first time, and as far as we can tell the survey's history. And now we have a really motivated younger group of staff that are starting to apply out for grants. We're submitting some applications tomorrow for grants that go through 2031, which doesn't even feel like a real date. But there's very much a long-sighted look of how can we ensure sustainable funding for the survey into the future.
I think that's really, and it's nice, it was nice to see too, is a forecasted multi-year contracts, or you can even add in what your projected revenue would be from.
We can, right, we can start, and that's a really key thing about capacity, right? And so as we started to request that our teams bring us proposals, they're doing that mapping out exercise and starting to realize what their capacity is or isn't. And that's allowed, again, as we pointed out, that's allowed us to make the decision to recruit some additional help. I've also asked them to just slow down on grants and be really thoughtful.
Because of the match.
Yeah, and the feedback I get is that I'm really the first director that hasn't been like, go get all the money you can, right? I'm like, what does Steve Jobs say about Apple? We say no to good ideas every day, right? We want to be strategic. We want to be thoughtful about the work we do. We'll be building these into our strategic plan as we ask our teams to really look at their goals and what they want to accomplish and what are the critical questions that we need to answer for the state, right? Those are the types of grants that we want to go.
We've gotten a lot better at chasing smart money that doesn't cost us much and that lasts for a couple of years. So I think we're in a very, very strong position at this point.
That'll help you with your long-term staffing plan.
It will help us with our long-term staffing plan. Yeah, and continuity, because I love that when built this into her presentation, it was one of her first things. We want to take care of the people that we have here, right? Make sure that they're not overcommitted, make sure that they have the support they need, and that, their positions have longevity also. That's just gives everybody job security. It's better for everybody. So.
Kudos on gorgeous slides. Those are great slides. It's a lot of work to put good slides together.
Is the funding around the Great Salt Lake, is that stable for several years in the future?
I'm sure it will be. With the commitment to have the lake restored by 2034, I believe that financial backup will be there. I mean, Trump has even written $1 billion for the Great Salt Lake into his budget that he gave to Congress. We'll see whether that actually gets funded or not. That would likely go through Bureau of Rec, EPA, and one other, maybe USGS, federal agencies, but we'll see. I'm sure there's a lot to talk about there. So I do think that there's a lot to talk about.
I love how open-ended the restoration by 2034 was.
We need restoration within the next year, but I mean, these are really difficult challenges.
What did restoration mean when you defined it?
Well, there's a critical threshold level for the lake, and we're below that critical threshold right now. There is a really great conference in Southern Utah. It was last month called Water Users. Neil was down there, and there were really interesting report outs on where we are with water situations in the Great Salt Lake Basin, as well as the Colorado River Basin. These are really stressful times for water in Utah. And our role in providing, good scientific data to help make decisions really can't be understated. They are looking to the survey for information and data on some of this. And our teams are developing some really amazing remote sensing methods to be able to get at these numbers: snowpack equivalent, soil saturation levels. We're deploying and building remote sensing tools to be able to get at statewide information on this that we've never really had before. And so when I talk about this demographic shift of we had a lot of senior people retire out of the survey, we have this younger cadre of people coming in. They are coming in with a really incredible analytical toolkit, and they can build models, and they know where to go get, validated data to put into these models. And so they're building a whole new toolkit that we really haven't had to be able to estimate, you know, snow water equivalents, snowpack depth, evapotranspiration. It's just really impressive. And when I see their proposals and I see their work, we just had a talk yesterday at our staff meeting. I was happy to send it to you. When I see the work that they're doing and the new toolkit that they're building so we can get at these really important answers about water resources across the state in almost real time, it is really impressive.
Something you could do regularly, like the talks that you have at your staff meetings, like talks that just pass through to the board. I'd love to see them.
They're actually our GEO committee is actually working on putting together like a UGS lecture and social series.
So we've recognized that our outreach to the public is not necessarily lacking, but could be expanded pretty greatly. So we're hoping to launch a quarterly series of public engagement talks where we go out to local library, Natural History Museum, other venues around the greater Wasatch Front, and give talks to the public on these sort of issues. What work are we doing? What new tools and technology are we deploying? So the first one we're hoping is going to be in August, either at the Natural History Museum or one of the libraries locally. But we can make sure to send you the staff meeting talks as well because they're so interesting.
It's the slide deck's available.
They're recorded. We have them recorded, so you can actually listen to the presentation.
It goes back to the point I believe you made earlier. The questions of geology in Utah are just so incredible to answer, and the science is so great. People really want to come here and they want to work and they're passionate about the work. So it gives us an incredible applicant pool for all the jobs that we're listing. But once folks get in, they're really on the cutting edge of innovation with new methods and methodology to push forward some of these studies. It's pretty darn exciting.
We could bring them into a board meeting, weave those back in.
Let's
We
weave
haven't
those
had 'em
back
for
in.
a year.
At the end, when we have a discussion, I have some proposals for you guys about how to supplement our board meetings with some opportunities, not only engagement with our staff, but maybe to bring in Utah Mining Association or Utah Petroleum Association and talk to them about their industry needs from us too. Maybe you want to bring in people from your industry. So I think we have a great chance to, now that we're sort of through my sort of transition into this role, and the budget stress, that we experienced last year and our strategic planning and sort of refocusing of the organization. Now that we're through all of that, what can we do next to help engage you as board members also? So I think it's time to revisit that. I'm going to suggest we take a break, and I may log out of the meeting, see if I can log into my computer, pull up the slide deck. I think we're missing a couple slides. This will help me finish up our board meeting here today. So
Will you send us the announcements of those community engagements?
Yes, absolutely.
And because I think you have a lot of citizen scientists too around the ones
Oh,
up front.
yeah.
Our outreach on popular geology is already strong. These are some new approaches. We've kind of challenged our communications team and our GIO, our Geologic Information and Outreach team, to just pull back from what they're doing and think really differently about how we're reaching people and with what information. And they're doing a really good job in that. So
Thank you.
Madam
Yes,
Chair.
yes.
May
let's
we
take a
take
break.
a
It is 10:02. You want 10:15?
10:10.
10:10.
to order.
Because it's. Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Okay, here we go. We're back. It is now 10:19 and we're back to
Okay, hopefully our online guests are still with us. So I did add, I'm sorry, apparently the slides that I had added in yesterday are not saved, so I apologize. But I have added in a slide. I did want to talk to you guys about one other initiative that I would like to do for our geologic survey, and that is some space planning. And maybe when we walk through the, what else? We're not sharing?
We're not sharing.
Oh my goodness.
Are you talking about up in that large joint room or?
Just generally across all of our
I'll fill you in in a
offices.
second. Sorry, I can't do two things at once. So one sec.
It's not there. Yeah, I can't lose my, my microscope up there. That's.
I'm sure we'll keep it.
That's.
Anyone else is in this
We're
We're in the wrong meeting.
I don't have it.
We should be in the wrong meeting. Do you show any guests in your meeting?
Yeah.
For some reason, the calendar one doesn't work. Let me send it to you really quick.
The photo micrographs.
The calendar one doesn't work?
The one, I don't know how that, I don't know how that calendar one got set. I really
You
don't, because
email?
this is the one that I get from EDNR, so I'm forwarding it to you right now.
Okay.
It's in your email. It will be from your email. Are you signed on to your email?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I just forwarded it.
And that's dangerous to be right there between those guys.
That's good.
But you got a good window.
I do. Okay, thanks, Cheryl.
Geologist. There's not a whole lot to go.
Yeah. Okay, we got people in the call. Okay. Present.
I sent them that already, sir.
So
The problem
where?
is. Isn't that weird? Having knee replacement like 2 years ago.
Yeah, prosthetic.
Like prosthetic is shrink or what?
Sure.
It looks good. Yep.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you.
Yeah, they have.
If you guys haven't met Ben Sears, he's actually in our paleo group and does quite a bit of database and GIS work. And he's also stepped up as our AV help. And he's been saving my life and everyone else's, trying to figure out how to do all this. So thank you.
What do you do for the paleo group?
Managing the failure database and archives. And public outreach
And just helps out at UGS all around. Ben is really accommodating and a great go-to person, and you can tell I've been relying on him a lot. So,
And it's his birthday.
of
course, yeah.
Happy birthday, Ben.
Thank you very much.
All right, so I did want to give you guys a heads up. We do have a little extra money. I don't want to go nuts, especially because there is a very high likelihood that this building is not long for DNR. Given what's happening across the street with the ballpark, our building is aging out, possibly even without the ballpark redevelopment. We might be considering our options. You know, DNR either needs to invest quite a bit of money in updating our building or look for a new location for
This
DNR.
building or the DNR?
The whole entire
whole
campus,
thing.
the entire campus.
Okay.
It's all one parcel, which I have encouraged them to consider splitting the parcel where it narrows down behind the apartment building, but I don't think that's gonna happen. So as we look at building modifications, we do need to be mindful that whatever we invest, for one thing, any investments I make in UGS space comes out of UGS's budget. There is no magic pot of money for building upgrades that DNR has. So, I think we'll have more information within a month or two about timelines and where. But right now, I don't have anything that I can share about that. But I know when I've gone to DFCM and to our building manager for costs, they've been like, just really think about how much you want to invest right now. So I am being mindful about that. Also, you know, while we have some money to put into our, you know, culture and the environment, you know, we don't want to go crazy, right? I'd rather put that money into hiring science people and making sure we can take care of the people we have with promotions and ASIs. But I think there are a few things we need to do. For one thing, we have 4 new people starting really soon, and we're already out of space. We had a statewide return to work policy enacted last year. So everybody needs to be in office at least 2 days a week, if not 3 if they're supervisors. So that brought at least 9 to maybe 15 people back in the office. And so as I walk around, well, for one thing, we have a lot of old clutter in our office. And so I've been on kind of a housekeeping initiative, and we've actually accomplished one big sweep of, you know, disposing of a lot of materials and surplusing a bunch of cabinets, especially, and old stuff sitting around. So kudos to our team for taking the team to do that. We're going to go on another pass through of, you know, disposal and surplus. But our break room is super shabby. The countertop has like mold that you can't remove on it. The floors are really gross. It's not a very hospitable break room. And with 90 people, 85 people just in our group, this is the 3rd floor break room. So with, you know, 80 plus going on 90 people in our group and the other folks that use it, people don't stay long in there. And so I think we can upgrade our break room a little bit. I have a proposal from DFCM to replace the countertop, replace the flooring, and paint. DFCM's expensive, so don't get sticker shock. It's $15,000 to do that. But I think that's money that I would like to invest into giving our employees a nicer space to make their lunch in. There's also vending machines in there, and the team that runs the vending has agreed to remove one of the vending machines. It's super noisy and takes up a lot of space. So that'll give us some additional room there too. So I think I'm ready to move forward with the break room renovation. The other thing I'm looking at is, well, there's 3 things. The break room renovation, we have 4 new people coming now, and we need a second conference room. Our conference room where we meet every Monday morning and, you know, all our meetings are held throughout the week is in a really, really small space, really big chairs. And it's super claustrophobic in there, and it only seats about 9 people comfortably at the most. And our programs each have about 15 people in them. So I'm looking to create a second conference room. We also have a lot of overlapping conflicts when this conference room isn't available. And we host more meetings that are, you know, bringing in other agencies from DNR in our conference space. I think that's a little new for UGS. So we're bringing in, you know, our sister agencies to meet with us more often now. And so we just have a lot of conference conflicts. So I'm looking to convert a big room that we call Pangea into a conference room. It's quite roomy. It's maybe like if you went from the columns, well, actually it's bigger than that. It's probably half again as deep as this space. So it's quite roomy, and it's actually has a really great configuration where we can get tables on rollers and then move them around into a U shape, or, you know, combine them all together. There are, right now, it's a really inefficient and weird setup where we have these 2 huge tables that 2 people use when they're in office as workspace, and then some cubicles like put in there also. It just is kind of weird. And so we would create some new modular workstations for those people, as well as the people that are coming to work with us, our new people, and then convert the conference room space with the purchase of some tables and chairs into a second conference room in Pangea. So I've had some space planners come and walk around. There are vendors that DFCM works with. So we've had 3 of them come in and walk around with this. I'm starting to get proposals in right now for the conference room conversion, furniture. So that's really just furniture and additional monitor, and 1 new modular workstation for 4 to 5 people that the primary area I'm looking at is a kind of a central open area in the energy and metals group. So I will get prices for those. This is kind of one of my priorities. We have a lot of storage right now in open spaces that have natural light. And then people are crammed into these kind of interior, dark spaces. So I just want to move people into areas where there's natural light. And then, corral, we have like 8 supply cabinets, spread out through the survey. We can move those into a room where we have a plotter. We have another very large room that really has like a plotter and a copy machine in it. So not very well utilized space as well. So let's consolidate our supply cabinets, put them all in there. That'll free up a ton of space. We have a lot of filing cabinets. We have some closets where we have stuff stored that we can consolidate and just use our space better, declutter it a little bit, have a little more light that comes through. Hazards has actually a big bullpen area of workstations, but it's almost completely full of data preservation files. That work needs to be completed and those files need to get archived and shipped out of there. So I've asked them to respect the timeline because we need those workstation spaces for people. And there's literally just like boxes of massive files dashed in there. So I think we can do a little bit better. I'm going to get some costs for this. I haven't opened those emails yet, so I can't tell you what they are. I'm not sure I really want to see those. And again, this is something I'd like to do if the costs are reasonable. Any thoughts about that? Do you guys want to see the numbers before I move ahead or just trust me on this one?
Like, what's your total budget goal? Under 100 grand or more than that? Or?
I don't really have a budget. I would expect, I don't know how much these workstations cost right now. That's the wild card. I think the conference room will be pretty reasonable with, movable tables and chairs. And I think that's well worth the investment. We need the workstations, but the sky's the limit on workstations. There's a lot of different price points out there for furniture providers. The great thing is that with DFCM's vendors, Midwest Interiors and HB Workplaces, they have a whole suite of product price points that we can use for those workstations. So we want to find something that gives our team, a nice workspace, but is on the geological survey budget. So
Sounds good.
okay, all right, yeah, we are looking for room for people. So just wanted to put that out there.
How imminent? I know you were purposefully vague. Could a move be?
2 to 4 years,
Okay.
Probably, I think. So the biggest issue for us is this building and the
Right.
person. So, and they know about that. DNR is very aware that if this portion of the parcel is involved in, a real estate transfer, the core center needs to be moved. Now, that could be a great opportunity for us, right? Because we could look for a new space for the core center with a big warehouse that maybe has a nicer educational center, has more core layout and viewing areas for us, maybe has additional space for our paleo and, K through 12 teacher kit supplies that they have. So, and it also is something where we might want to solicit funds to help build out a new core center too. I think that's something we could probably put on our August agenda or talk about it while we're on our board field trip. It's not an emergency, but I think we should.
I think we
talk
got
about
to
it.
get out in front of it. So DNR previously has pitched us that, hey, why don't we just digitize the core center and then deep six all the core because they're expensive, which of course would destroy the value of the core. They're thinking of more digital, which I get it. If you're not a geologist, why store all this expensive core? That might be something that
I
comes up
think
again
we've
when they see the
convinced them,
cost.
I think we've convinced them that this is a physical resource. I haven't heard that brought up
Oh,
lately.
okay.
I think I got them over that. So there is a proposal. One of the bills that was passed was a resolution to create a mines center in Utah, either with federal funding or state funding. And this would be a facility that was centered, that is centered on supporting the mining industry. And that could be a lab. They're looking at like the national lab model where, you know, mining companies or, you know, minerals processing people, engineers could come in and, you know, demonstrate a technology for minerals processing and recovery. Is a, you know, potential core center or at least a core education center part of that. Would that help support the minerals industry? So we've been asked to kind of think and envision what UGS could provide in a potential mine center. So we'll just kind of continue on that. So I think for all of us, let's continue the conversation about a potential future core center and what that might look like. But we're not moving in the next, and I'm just guessing on the 2 to 5 years. So
Rich, they gotta build that whole new facility by the prison. You know about the prison.
the new prison or the old prison?
They've got a lot of land out there.
I don't think they're gonna be building it. But if they are, I have thoughts, right?
Yeah, there could be like hot bunk housing.
That's right. Yeah, they'll make big promises about mosquito abatement first.
Yeah, right, mosquito abatement. Okay, yeah, just want to be really transparent about, you know, things that might be bigger ticket capital expenses than you've seen in the past, so I just feel like that's something we should have. Okay, and I think that just kind of brings us to our closing discussion items. I don't think I have any upcoming announcement. Our next board meeting is August 10th. So check your calendars. What's that?
The 12th.
12th. Okay, thank you. Check your calendars to see if that works for you. There's a possibility that I may or may not be at that meeting. So if I'm not available, Stephen Kirby will be your, you know, acting director for that. I have to have my knee replaced and I'm thinking about doing it in mid-July. And so I just may not be back on board by August 12th. So I'll just, Stephen Kirby will be acting director while I'm on medical. He'll do a great job.
We have the Crawford Award between now and June, and remember, we're gonna talk about a process.
That
This year.
is right. Okay. So let's add, we may want to amend our agenda for today, just to indicate that let's talk about the Crawford Award. Thank you for remembering that, because by June, by the time we meet in August, it'll be passed.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, we'll visit that. Let's just talk real quick about our board field trip. So October 7th through 9th. Cheryl sent out a draft itinerary, and again, we'll talk about this in August as well. So any last minute changes to this, we'll let you guys know. But right now, these are the dates for that. We'll fly you guys down the state plane. It's about an hour and 20 minutes, I think. So we'll meet here. We'll go over to aviation, get a safety briefing, load up. Please, as you think about what you're going to pack, just pack super light. We can also put stuff in the vans, but you would need to have it here the day before because the vans are going to go down a day in advance. But otherwise, just pack light. A couple days in October, weather should be great. Be a really great field tour down there. Excited about it. And then we'll be field tripping our way back in the vans. And then again, before we talk about the Crawford Award, let's just talk about our future board meetings. And do we want to do presentations from programs? Would you be interested in having Utah Mining Association's director come in just to kind of meet, and maybe you do that same with UPA as well? And what are you guys interested in hearing more from about the survey?
You know, if we got Mike in here once in a while, you know, see what they're doing, same thing for water. I mean, you know, once a year or every 2 years, you know, just kind of, they go through their, do a 20 on what the biggest priorities are, and support they'd like from the board.
Okay, so maybe program by program, you know, one per meeting, program by program. Do you want the staff to come in as well? so you can meet the staff? Okay.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Well, I
Some of
think
that
you'll
we
be
get at the
surprised by how
picnics.
much bigger some of
I
our
know,
groups are.
I
so.
know.
Like, do you have the picnic already planned this year?
Yes, we do.
Because some of that, we also get at the picnics, but it's just a different setting.
Oh, yeah. We love having you guys at the picnic and our holiday party. I think it's June.
Yeah, let me. It's July.
Well, wherever you guys get your dessert places for that.
Oh, that was so good last
So
year.
stinking
That was
good.
great.
June 18th.
June 8th.
Yes, June
Yeah,
18th
you know.
at from 11:30 to 5, but everybody leaves by like 4. So 11:30 and at the same place, Big Cottonwood Regional Park in the pavilions. Oh, wait, that was 2025. My bad. Oh,
So.
I'm sorry.
It's the 25th.
It's the
June
25th. My calendar doesn't do a good enough searching. Yeah, the 25th.
I can send out an invite.
Please,
Do I-
yeah, will you?
Yep, I'll send an invite out for that.
Okay, but same place?